Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine reducing everything you own, I mean everything, not just down to what fits in, say, a tiny apartment, but down to a number that's, well, often less than the socks and toiletries you might kind of cram into a weekend carry-on bag.
Right, like really minimal.
Exactly. And then living like that for, what, a year and a half? While actively traveling the globe.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme when you put it like that.
And we're not talking about, a gap year student finding themselves. We are diving deep today into the sources about Andrew Hyde. He's a highly successful tech entrepreneur who, well, claimed to live with only 15 possessions for 16 pretty intense months.
Yeah, and what's truly fascinating about Andrew Hyde, I think, is the specific context he brings to this.
Yeah.
He's not defined by the typical minimalist tropes you might think of.
How so?
Well, he's an organizational force, seriously.
Yeah.
We're talking about the founder of global phenomena like Startup Weekend and Startup Week. These are huge deals.
Oh, yeah. Startup Weekend is massive. I know people who've done those.
Right. And he was a key early contributor at TechStars, too. He was based out of Boulder, Colorado, a real high-stakes hub of innovation before this whole pivot happened.
Okay, that distinction is vital then. This isn't just someone drifting. This is a guy whose career was built on scaling organizations, creating structures where, none existed before.
Exactly. Managing explosive global growth.
So when he decides to scale his personal life down to just 15 items, it's not an accident, right? It's not some casual experiment.
No, you get the sense it's engineered. A hyper-efficient system he designed for maximum mobility and, well, output in a way.
An engineered life.
Precisely.
Yeah.
His background gave him that kind of rigor, the discipline required to maintain a life with such extreme constraints.
Makes sense.
So our mission in this deep dive is first to trace the origin of this really radical decision, like, why did a successful founder choose essentially intentional homelessness?
Right. What pushes someone to that point?
And then we'll analyze the intense logistics, the nuts and bolts of those 15 items. Because people always want to know what the items were.
Oh, definitely. The specifics are key.
And maybe most importantly, we really want to unpack his evolving minimalist philosophy, which ultimately reframes scarcity not as deprivation.
Which is how most people see it.
Exactly. But as a powerful catalyst for actually expanding the possibilities in your life, which is kind of counterintuitive.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's start at the beginning then. The high-flying corporate life that he, ultimately decided to reject.
Right. So Andrew Hyde's professional profile before this massive shift was, by any measure, pretty exceptional. He was really a foundational figure in the global startup ecosystem.
Okay.
Startup Weekend, which he created, is probably the prime example. It's this really immersive, 54-hour event. You get developers, designers, business folks all together.
Pitching ideas, forming teams.
Exactly. And launching actual functioning startups by the end of the weekend. It's intense.
And the scope of Startup Weekend, it's immense, isn't it? It went properly global.
Oh, totally. It scaled everywhere. It really established a blueprint for, rapid innovation and community building in the tech world.
A huge organizational feat in itself.
Absolutely. It spread across hundreds of cities, demanding this incredible level of high efficiency organization and just a relentless pace.
Wow.
And he followed that up with Startup Week, Ignite Boulder, TEDx Boulder, all these really demanding, community-driven organizational projects. Big stuff.
So he was deeply embedded in that whole scene.
Deeply. And then his early involvement with TechStars, which is, one of the premier startup accelerators globally, that placed him right in the thick of it. That hyper-intense environment where, rapid success is basically the only acceptable outcome.
Right. High pressure.
So he wasn't just watching the startup world from the sidelines. He was actively building its infrastructure.
Yeah, he was an architect of it, in a way.
Definitely. And even amidst all that intense focus, he still found time to write. He published a book. This book is about travel.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that. It did well.
Extremely well, yeah. Topped the travel categories on Amazon and iBooks for a while.
Right.
So, he had the quintessential life, really, of the successful, driven, modern professional.
Got it all, seemingly.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
His own self-description was interesting, too. Minimalist, writer, bootstrapper, designer. So the minimalist idea was maybe already brewing?
Oh, okay. Foreshadowing.
Maybe. And he'd already traveled a lot, over 80 countries, often while juggling this high-pressure workload.
Yeah.
He had all those traditional markers of success, financial stability, high status, central position in a cutting-edge field.
Which just makes the abruptness of his shift, his pivot, all the more profound, right?
Exactly. It wasn't a gradual winding down.
So what broke? I mean, what was the catalyst? Why didn't he just, take a 6-month sabbatical? Why completely jettison the entire structure of his life?
Yeah, it seems it wasn't just one thing. It sounds like it was a really devastating confluence of crises hitting all at once.
Oh, okay.
While he was deep in TechStars and that whole rapid-paced startup scene, he experienced this profound internal burnout, like deep burnout. He realized the traditional corporate structure, even the cool startup version of it, he said it was not his life.
Yeah.
He just felt fundamentally misaligned, out of sync with the path he was on.
The classic existential crisis hitting the high achiever. Yeah, happens a lot.
Absolutely. But then this internal realization kind of coincided with external collapse too.
Oh, no.
Yeah. He went through a relationship breakup, which is always tough.
Right.
But he also suffered a really debilitating injury while training for an Ironman competition.
Ouch. An Ironman. That's serious training.
Very. So think about it. Simultaneously, his professional identity was in question, his personal life was kind of shattered, and his ability to pursue this major physical goal was suddenly just gone, taken away.
Wow. That's more than just a sign. That sounds like a complete structural failure, like you said, something demanding a total rebuild.
Yeah.
When your internal compass and your external supports all fail at once, a radical reset feels almost necessary, doesn't it?
Exactly. It seems that's how he took it. His friends apparently offered simple advice, dude, just go travel.
That's standard advice.
Standard advice.
Yeah.
But Andrew Hyde, this guy who engineers global phenomena like Startup Weekend,
right.
He couldn't just travel. That wasn't his style, right?
Okay, he had to engineer.
He needed to engineer a solution to his life crisis.
Yeah.
So he decided to eliminate the baggage, both, literally and figuratively.
And he did it in this spectacular fashion, the couch party. That sounds like a real narrative high point, a moment of just absolute dramatic commitment.
It really was, by all accounts.
Yeah.
He organized this farewell party, called it a couch party, and just gave away all of his physical possessions to his friends.
All of it, like furniture, everything.
Everything. He systematically divested himself of every object he owned. He relinquished his address, confirmed he sold off any remaining financial assets, and literally walked out the door with a single backpack.
Wow.
That was the start of what the media quickly labeled extreme minimalism. He stated it pretty plainly. Quit TechStars, sold everything, just went traveling. It was immediate, total, and seemingly irreversible at the time.
I am always amazed by how people with those high-level organizational skills apply that expertise to their personal world when they're under duress. It's fascinating. He spent his career building these complex structures like Startup Weekend, right? Requiring intense focus, efficiency.
Total efficiency.
Now, facing burnout and crisis, he applies that exact same rigor to dismantle and streamline his own existence.
It's like the ultimate expression of control during chaos, isn't it? Instead of just letting the crises overwhelm him, he organized a response, a radical one.
Yeah.
That same rigor required to manage a global organization was now focused on optimizing his own life for, lightness, maximum mobility.
So he wasn't running away from structure or organization at all.
Not really, no. He was imposing a new, radically optimized structure, one designed specifically for freedom and mobility. It's just that sometimes these extreme experiments aren't about a lack of control, but actually a redirection of existing, powerful organizational capability.
Trading asset management for life management.
Exactly. Well put.
Yeah.
He traded managing companies and events for managing his own core existence.
And the product of that new organizational model was the 15-item project.
That's it.
Okay, let's dive into the logistics of that, because this is where the sheer practicality, or maybe impracticality, depending on your view, of his experiment becomes utterly fascinating.
Right. So the project began officially in the summer of 2010, and it was immediately public. He announced it on his blog.
The public declaration, accountability.
Exactly. A common tactic for high achievers.
Yeah.
Put it out there. The rules were simple, but the implementation was severe. He committed to owning exactly 15 items, and critically, every single one of those items had to be resaleable.
Okay, the resaleable rule is interesting. Why do you think that was important?
Well, it speaks to that concept of exchangeability that he championed later on, right? It prevents you from accumulating cheap, disposable trinkets you get emotionally attached to for no reason.
Good point. Forces you towards quality, towards utility, things that hold value.
Exactly. High quality, high utility items. But, maintaining that strict count of 15 while actually living and traveling required some creative optimization, what he called his counting rules.
Ah, the express checkout lane of possession counting. I read about that. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is where you really see the designer-entrepreneur mindset kicking in. He was meticulous about it, but also practical.
Okay.
For example, chargers and cables. They were included with the electronic device they powered. They didn't count as separate items.
Ah, clever.
So the MacBook Air plus its power cord counted as one single item. The iPhone 3GS plus its cord also just one item.
So he wasn't like cheating the spirit of the rule by hiding stuff. He wasn't carrying extraneous items he didn't declare.
No, not at all.
But he was optimizing the count for efficiency. That's a very bootstrapper way of thinking, isn't it? Finding the most efficient path within the given constraints.
Totally. He even offered this humorous analogy comparing his rule to the express checkout lane at a grocery store. You know, how a six-pack of beer counts as one item.
Ah, right. It's a functional unit.
Exactly. The spirit was not to count every tiny component of a functional kit, but rather the individual tools themselves.
Makes sense. And this experiment, it wasn't just like a weekend challenge either. He sustained this highly constrained life for a year and a half.
16 months, yeah, about that.
16 months, while traveling internationally, but also doing things like integrating into a working ranch in Colorado, and even living for a bit in New York City.
Yeah, the variety's impressive.
Living in Manhattan with only 15 items, that is an incredible contrast right there.
It really is. And he didn't just, barely survive either. He documented the total weight of his 15 possessions, and it was staggeringly light. Just 9 pounds, it's about 4 kilograms.
9 pounds? Are you serious? That's nothing.
It's crazy light. I mean, think about it. For you listening, that's often less than a standard laptop, maybe 3 textbooks, and a water bottle.
Yeah, my gym bag weighs more than that.
Exactly. That 9 pounds was his entire material life. It enabled him to cross continents without ever checking a bag. Ever. Total freedom of movement.
Okay, let's run through the inventory then, because this provides the concrete map, right? The actual blueprint of ultra-minimalist functionality. What were the core 15 items that carried him through, 80 countries?
Right, so starting with the foundation, the container itself, the Arc'teryx Mura 30 backpack.
Okay, Arc'teryx. High-end stuff.
Yeah, a crucial choice.
Yeah.
Arc'teryx is known for high-end durability, but also really low weight.
Right.
It emphasizes quality over quantity, which goes right back to that resaleable rule we talked about.
So the investment in quality means he doesn't need backups, doesn't need redundancy, which helps keep the count down.
Precisely. Smart investment. Then, the key working tools. The MacBook Air Superlight, the iPhone 3GS, which was current then, and a camera.
The essentials for a modern writer, blogger, community organizer on the move. Non-negotiable, really.
Pretty much. The rest were clothing. And this is where it gets really interesting, meticulously chosen for utility.
Okay, what was the clothing strategy? It must have been focused on layering, quick-drying fabrics, versatility.
Absolutely. Spot on. He had one long sleeve shirt and one short sleeve shirt. Some sources mention these were from the NAU brand.
NAU. Don't know them.
They're known for sustainable, travel-friendly, kind of technical fabrics. Performance wear, basically.
Gotcha. Okay, 2 shirts. What else?
He had one pair of long pants, one pair of Patagonia running shorts, super functional, right? You can use those for sleeping, swimming, exercise, whatever.
It's true. Very versatile.
And a Mammoth rain jacket. Again, these are specialized, lightweight, outdoor gear brands. They're built for high performance in all sorts of conditions. Quality again.
Okay, so 2 shirts, 1 pair of pants, 1 pair of shorts. That's the entire wardrobe for global travel across different climates. That's sparse.
Extremely sparse. For footwear,
Yeah, what about shoes?
he had 2 pairs. Specialized running shoes, good for walking, travel, actual running, and a pair of sandals. Simple.
Okay. Runners and sandals covers most bases, I guess.
The remaining items just rounded out the basic necessity kit. Smith sunglasses, a wallet, a quick dry towel, absolutely essential for hostels and constant movement.
Oh yeah, those quick-dry towels are lifesavers.
Totally. And finally, a small toiletry kit. That was it. 15 items.
You know, the genius of that list is the sheer absence of redundancy, isn't it? Every single item is high utility, cross-functional, and light. There's absolutely no sentimentality there, only cold, hard necessity defined by mobility.
Exactly. And this leads us nicely into his personal experience of living with this level of scarcity. Because many people assume this kind of reduction must be a huge sacrifice, right? Really restrictive, maybe leading to decision fatigue over what he didn't have.
Yeah, I'd probably be constantly thinking about what I was missing.
But Hyde reported the exact opposite. He actually found it surprisingly comfortable, easy even.
Really? Comfortable.
Yeah. He famously said his simple routine was just wash the first shirt, wear the second, boom, done.
He completely eliminated the mental burden of managing a large wardrobe, or any large collection of stuff.
That reduction in decision fatigue is just monumental, isn't it? He realized that rotating just 3 items of clothing to 2 shirts and maybe washing the pants less often was infinitely easier than hauling around, say, 50 pounds, 23 kilos of luggage.
Which is what many average travelers accept as normal.
Right. He was carrying his entire life on his back,
Yep.
effortlessly. Minimal physical burden, minimal mental burden.
Okay, here's where the philosophical crack starts to open up, I think. His surprising realization, the one you mentioned earlier, was that once you adapt to this level of simplicity, you actually start to see the world differently. He noted that other people's complex normal lives look bolder.
That is such a profound statement, isn't it? It completely flips the definition of what's extreme. If he feels light and free with just 15 items,
Then the person lugging massive suitcases, paying for storage units, juggling mortgages and car payments, maybe that's the truly complicated, high-burden, bold lifestyle.
he totally flipped the script. He reframed normal complexity as the actual extreme.
Yeah. So the ultimate benefit he derived from all this, and this connects right back to his entrepreneurial mission, his community building, was that being physically and mentally light allowed him to focus entirely on experiences.
Right.
On travel, on connecting with new communities, on writing. Rather than spending any cognitive bandwidth on maintaining, storing, securing, or even just thinking about possessions.
That 9-pound bag wasn't just gear. It was like a physical manifestation of total freedom from asset management. It freed up his mind to manage people and ideas instead.
Which was his core skill set anyway.
Exactly. This incredible rigor, born from his organizational background, is what made his extreme minimalism functional, not torturous. But now, we have to transition to what happens next. What happens when life inevitably expands beyond those initial, really rigid constraints.
Right. The life-changing moment when you realize you actually really, really need an electric toothbrush. Or maybe a suit. Okay, so fast forward. 16 months after the Great Divestiture, the big couch party, this is around January 2012, Hyde publishes an update on his blog, and the number of items, it had grown. The experiment was still, considered a success by him, but the count was no longer strictly 15.
That's right. The total count had risen to 39 items. Now, this is often the point where, the minimalism purists might cry foul. They might say, see, it failed. You can't sustain it.
Right. He caved.
Exactly. But the really fascinating detail here is that only just six of the original 15 items actually remained on that list of 39.
Oh, only 6. That's interesting. What does that tell us?
It indicates a highly dynamic living inventory, doesn't it? It means the other 9 items from the original list hadn't just been stored away. They'd been genuinely used up, worn out, maybe sold or given away, or exchanged based on evolving necessity over those 16 months of constant travel and activity.
So the increase wasn't really hoarding then. It was more like replacing worn-out tools and adding new tools that became necessary for an evolving life project.
Precisely. The additions themselves were highly revealing because they directly reflect the specific activities he started engaging in more.
Okay, like what? What kind of things did he add?
Well, he added camping gear. That suggests a shift towards maybe more rugged, self-sufficient outdoor experiences, right?
Makes sense.
He added cycling equipment, so another specific activity requiring specific gear. And perhaps most tellingly, reflecting a potential return towards a more formalized professional life. He added a suit and tie.
The suit and tie, that's a key addition, isn't it?
Totally.
It shows he was now maybe re-engaging with parts of the world, the professional world, that require specific social uniforms, things that were entirely unnecessary for a purely transient traveler living out of a backpack. His lifestyle was demanding new tools.
Exactly. And yes, there was also the practical realization that some basic comforts just mattered.
He added an electric toothbrush. The electric toothbrush test, a minimalist benchmark.
Maybe. But all this leads us to the core philosophical distinction he made, which is so important. He stated it very clearly. This is a project, not a manifesto.
A project, not a manifesto. Explain that.
He was actively, consciously disavowing the concept of minimalism as some kind of rigid, moralizing dogma, like a religion you have to follow perfectly.
Right. Less rules, more guidelines or tools.
Exactly. He stressed that if his only goal was simply achieving the lowest possible number, he could have easily cut those 39 items down further, maybe back to 10, he suggested. But that wasn't the point anymore.
The point of the original 15-item project had been served, is that it?
That seems to be the idea.
Right.
The experiment proved he could live successfully and effectively with minimal overhead. It reset his system. But once the project shifted, say, from pure nomadic travel to maybe hosting meetings or go on cycling tours or camping trips, the toolset had to adjust accordingly.
So the philosophy became detached from the actual count of items.
Precisely. And we see this reflected very clearly in his current status. He eventually, settled down somewhat. He purchased a home back in Boulder. And he estimates his current possession count is somewhere around 400 items.
400. Wow. Okay, that is a huge jump from 15 or even 39.
It's massive. 27 times his original number.
So for many people who identify as minimalist, owning 400 items would definitely be seen as like a retreat from the philosophy, wouldn't it? How does Hyde reconcile that enormous jump?
Well, his argument, and it's a consistent one, is that counting things is merely a metric. It's a data point. It's not the core value itself.
Okay.
The core value, the insight he extracted from that intense 15-item project that remained intact. And that value is all objects are exchangeable, and he's not bound by ownership.
So the freedom doesn't come from the small member itself.
No.
It comes from the psychological readiness, the internal mindset that allows you to let go of any object at any time without feeling loss.
You got it. That reframing is monumental, I think. It shifts minimalism away from being primarily about sacrifice, about what you give up,
to being about psychological flexibility, mental agility, readiness for change.
Yes, if you truly believe deep down that an object is exchangeable, you don't assign it all this heavy emotional or psychological weight. It's just a tool.
Right. It serves a purpose, and when it doesn't or when the purpose changes, you exchange it.
Exactly. He frames minimalism as an opportunity creator, a means to actually expand possibilities, rather than just reducing clutter for the sake of tidiness. He famously cited Socrates, actually.
Oh yeah, what was the connection?
Arguing that the secret to happiness isn't endlessly seeking more stuff, but rather cultivating the ability to enjoy less, to find satisfaction in simplicity.
So it's about appreciation of what you have, however little, and the freedom that simplicity gives you to pursue new experiences. It's the doing over the curating.
Yes, exactly. His emphasis consistently seems to be on active engagement with the world. Dreaming, planning, swimming in the sea, climbing mountains, building communities. Possessions are merely passive tools that facilitate this active life.
Okay.
So, if a new project requires a new tool like a suit for a meeting or a tent for camping, you acquire it. You use it efficiently. But you maintain that core mindset. This is exchangeable when its utility expires or changes.
You know, this is a really powerful application for the learner listening to this. How do we internalize this project, not manifesto distinction? So we don't feel that typical guilt when our lives inevitably demand expansion.
Right.
Say, when you start a new hobby that requires maybe some expensive equipment, or heaven forbid, you have children, and suddenly your house explodes with 1,000 new items.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it means we have to consciously try to use minimalism as a tactical tool, not as some kind of religious law we failed if we break.
It's got a temporary strategy.
Kind of. Think of it maybe like nutritional planning. A strict manifesto might say, never ever eat carbs.
Right.
Very rigid.
Okay.
A project-based approach says, okay, I need to cut carbs significantly for the next 6 weeks to meet this specific fitness goal I have. But after that goal is met, I'll strategically reintroduce them based on my activity level and what my body needs. It's adaptable.
Right. The context changes the requirement.
Exactly. Hyde's 15-item life was his extreme tactical cut, his 6-week carb restriction, if you will. It proved to himself and publicly that he could function at that level. And maybe more importantly, it purged the mental clutter associated with his old life.
So the freedom he gained came not just from the low number itself during that time,
Probably not primarily, no.
but from proving to himself that he could live with that low number. That internal knowledge, that confidence, is what prevents him from feeling bound or trapped by the 400 items he owns now.
I think that's a huge part of it. He knows they are all, in principle, exchangeable. The guilt we often feel comes from the perceived failure of the manifesto, the broken rule. The freedom comes from the remembered success of the project, the achieved goal.
That makes sense.
Hyde's commitment to new activities, later on, the cycling, the camping, the more formal speaking engagement, those things demanded an evolved tool set, a suit, a tent, bike gear. And he didn't seem to feel guilty about that necessary expansion because the underlying philosophy remained constant.
It's still about utility. about serving the active life, not about reduction purely for its own sake.
Exactly. That emphasis on utility, on exchangeability, and on serving an active life. That's really the defining feature of his particular approach, isn't it? And it really sets him apart from many typical definitions or portrayals of minimalism.
Yeah, definitely. Let's explore that difference a bit further. What makes the Hyde difference so distinct?
Well, I think when most people hear modern minimalism, they tend to picture, those beautifully curated apartments you see online. Very sparse, very aesthetically pleasing.
White walls, one perfect chair.
Right. Or maybe capsule wardrobes, Marie Kondo principles applied to a home. Essentially, it's often about optimizing a fixed, stationary life, making your home base serene and uncluttered.
Which is valuable in itself, of course.
Absolutely. But Andrew Hyde's minimalism was like the radical opposite of stationary. It was kinetic.
He embraced perpetual motion, didn't he? And deep community immersion. He was intentionally homeless, as we said.
Yeah, traveling across 80-plus countries, spending the majority of the year on the road with his entire material existence packed into that tiny 9-pound bag.
And his core goal seemed consistently external, right? It was about experience, interaction, contributing to communities he visited.
Exactly. He wasn't maximizing his personal freedom simply for, personal quietude or having really clean surfaces in an apartment. He was leveraging the lack of possessions to be optimally available to the world, to engage with it more fully.
Can you give us a concrete example of how this active, outward-facing minimalism translated into his actual actions during that period?
Yeah, sure. One example that comes up is that while he was traveling, he didn't just, stay in hotels or anonymous hostels all the time. He actually spent time volunteering on a friend's farm in, I believe, some rural areas.
Oh, interesting. Getting his hands dirty.
Yeah. It shows a commitment to usefulness, right? To community immersion that goes way beyond simple tourism or just consuming experiences. For him, it seems the lack of a fixed home, the lack of fixed possessions, was actually the optimal platform for truly engaging with the world and maybe adding some value wherever he stopped, however briefly. He optimized for presence.
Presence and participation, not just observation.
Well put. Well, and he also used the experiment itself as content, didn't he? He wasn't conducting this intense personal project in isolation.
No, definitely not. He's a community organizer at heart, it seems. And he used his own personal life as kind of a stage or maybe a case study for his philosophical ideas about possessions and freedom.
Absolutely. The rigor he applied to the experiment itself was matched by the rigor of his documentation and sharing. He used his platform, his blog, his books, and major public speaking engagements, like that 2012 TEDx Boulder talk he gave, to share the exact mechanism, the how-to, but also the underlying philosophy of the 15-item life.
And that reach was pretty extensive, wasn't it? He wasn't just talking to other minimalists.
No, he quickly gained significant mainstream media attention. He was covered by major outlets like the New York Times, the Washington Post, NBC, ABC Radio. He managed to turn a very personal, somewhat eccentric decision into a genuine global conversation about consumerism, ownership, and what freedom really means in the modern world.
That public nature of the project definitely amplified its impact, far beyond what just a private experiment could ever achieve.
For sure. And this ties back directly to his entrepreneurial roots again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He knows how to build communities. He knows how to leverage media and public speaking to get ideas out there to make them spread rapidly.
Yeah, it's that perfect synergy we talked about earlier playing out again. He stripped his own life down to the bare essential tools, freeing up the mental and physical bandwidth required to then actively engage with the world and build successful communities, which was, always his driving professional passion anyway.
It's really the ultimate example of bootstrapping your life, isn't it? By ruthlessly eliminating the overhead associated with asset management. Things like paying insurance, storage fees, maintenance costs, even just the mental energy of worrying about your stuff, the emotional attachment.
Right, all that cognitive load.
By eliminating all that, he maximized his most valuable resources, his time, his attention, and his mobility. That 15-item life was simply the most optimized platform he could design for himself as a global community organizer who needed to be incredibly agile and fully present wherever he went.
So he intentionally stripped away the need to manage things so he could more effectively manage people and ideas. That feels like the real aha moment of his entire story.
I think so too.
And that's the core difference, isn't it, between his active, mobile, outward-focused approach and the more static, curated, inward-focused approach, often associated with traditional minimalism.
Yeah. He fundamentally proved, at least for himself, that a life of seeming scarcity, when it's engineered efficiently and for a purpose, can actually unlock a radical expansion of opportunity and experience. It's not about less life, it's potentially about more life, just experienced differently. Hashtag outro.
So today we have journeyed through the really quite radical life experiment of Andrew Hyde. We've traced his path from being this high-flying tech entrepreneur, co-founding things like Startup Weekend,
Major so.
to becoming the man who literally gave away everything he owned at that couch party, and then sustained a life of constant global travel out of a single 9-pound bag.
Yeah.
A bag containing precisely 15 carefully chosen high-utility items, and he did that for 16 pretty intense months.
The practical details we discussed, the specific choice of the MacBook Air and the Arc'teryx backpack, that simple but brilliant routine of wash one shirt, wear the other, they really demonstrate the hyper-organized rigor he applied to his own life.
Yeah, the system behind it all.
But I think the intellectual breakthrough he offers us, the big takeaway, is that shift in definition we explored. Andrew Hyde really showed us that maybe minimalism isn't primarily about adhering to some rigid dogma or achieving an arbitrary low number on a spreadsheet.
Right, it's not just about the count.
It's more about cultivating a mindset of exchangeability regarding objects and understanding the profound freedom that mentality can grant you. Freedom from being mentally weighed down by stuff.
It's a tool then, a temporary project maybe, that you utilize to facilitate higher goals, goals like travel or community engagement or deep personal experience.
Exactly. And critically, without feeling permanently bound by the rules of that project when your goals inevitably shift or evolve, as his did.
Yeah, I mean, he went from 15 items to 39 items as his needs changed and now owns a home with, perhaps 400 items? But the core philosophy, he argues, remains.
So if the ultimate goal of minimalism, as Hyde kind of redefined it for himself, is to enhance life possibilities and maximize true freedom, then maybe we have to ask ourselves a provocative question. You, listening right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Where might you, the learner, discover that you are currently using possessions? Maybe physical possessions, sure, but maybe also mental possessions, like old commitments or rigid routines, to actively avoid a possibility, to hold yourself back.
Ooh, that's a tough question. Using possessions as a shield against possibility.
Yeah. What is the one major piece of baggage you're carrying? Perhaps it's an expensive hobby you never actually do, or a time-consuming commitment you secretly dread, or maybe just an object that requires constant maintenance and worry that if you adopted Hyde's mindset, if you deemed it truly exchangeable, what new possibility might that unlock in your life? Could be travel, or more time for community work, or maybe even just the mental simplicity and focus that he found.
It forces you to confront what you're holding on to and why.
Consider this. The heaviest item you carry might not be in your backpack, or even in your house. It might be the thing you feel you simply can't let go of. Is that possession, in reality, preventing you from starting your next great project?